Guys, boxing gossip in the house. It's April the 1st, it's April Fool's Day, and I wanted to do a video suggestion that was made to me by my good friend Dave Morozic, who runs the Dave Champion YouTube channel, which is a boxing channel, which I, of course, recommend you guys check out. With it being April the 1st, how about we do a quick look ahead to the month's boxing and discuss in brief some of the major fights and talk about the schedule and decide whether or not April is a very, very good night or is a very, very good month even, should I say. So to start off with, this evening, we have Dominic Akinlade versus Nathan Gorman for the English heavyweight title, and we've got a great fight on Box Nation, Marco Huck versus Marius Bradis for the WBC cruiserweight strap. A really, really good fight. Always like it on this channel when you get two fighters in the top five of their respective divisions squaring off against each other. And maybe the winner of this fight is still behind Alexander Usyk, but realistically, the winner of this fight has very, very strong claims indeed to be the number 2 cruiserweight within the division, I believe. So, that's a really, really good fight, and that's a hardcore fans fight, really. That's a pure, it's a fight for guys who are, real boxing fans, and one that I'm very much looking forward to and will be covering on the channel. Moving later on into the month, if we go ahead to next weekend, Saturday the 8th of April, we've got a few bits of boxing that are relevant. Alexander Usyk, who's already come up in this video as the number 1 cruiserweight on the planet in my book, and I would assume in most people's books, is taking on Michael Hunter. Now, Usyk is a huge favourite to win that fight and retain his status. He's obviously still relatively new in his career, despite the fact he's already a world champion. He's already beaten Krzysztof Glowacki. I think he's had circa 10 fights, so will be interesting to see him get a run out again, but hopefully we'll see him in against another guy at the top of the division in his fight following on from this. Frank Warren also has a bill on Saturday the 8th of April, and I'm very disappointed because unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but it is what it is, I'm running a marathon the day after away from home, so I'm not at home and I won't be watching the bill live, so very unfortunate for me. I really was looking forward to this bill, but I'll have to cover it the Monday after that weekend. But if I look down it, Terry Flanagan is defending his lightweight belt against Peter Petrov. But the real fight for me, the fight that's generating substantial interest, and the fight that really, really, really seems to have caught the hardcore boxing fans' imagination, is the battle of the Liams. Liam Smith versus Liam Williams. And again, it is probably a fight that I'd suggest is a hardcore boxing fans fight. The typical football fans in a pub who maybe watch your Anthony Joshuas and your Chris Eubanks probably aren't going to be sitting at home watching this fight. But if you know your boxing, if you know the British boxing scene, you know that this is a very, very high-class matchup. Liam Smith coming off, well, he had a 4-rounder actually, but prior to that, coming off a loss to Canelo Alvarez, fighting on the biggest stage possible, is taking on unbeaten Liam Williams. And it's for an interim version of the WBO world title, I believe, which we assume Canelo will vacate as he no longer has intention of campaigning at light middleweight, one would presume. But that's a truly, truly fantastic fight. And it's a good build to have a fight of that excitement with a world champion on the card as well in Terry Flanagan. Terry Flanagan Petrov, for me, it's not the most exciting fight. Petrov isn't the most marketable opponent, but I've had various tip-offs to say that he's actually fairly decent. So that could be a good boxing match for the purists. Olympic gold medalist Nicola Adams also makes her debut on the undercard of that belt, which is another one to look out for. Now that evening, Vasyl Lomachenko is also fighting Jason Sosa. So really, this is a bad weekend of boxing for me to be missing. I'm missing Alexander Usyk, the number 1 cruiserweight in the world. I'm missing Vasyl Lomachenko, and I'm missing the big bill with Terry Flanagan and Liam Smith, Liam Williams. So, unfortunately, I couldn't ask them to change the date of the marathon. And having trained for it for 4 months or so, I'm not going to miss it. But I'm gutted to be missing out on that one, and I will be covering all the fights the week following, obviously. Just won't be doing it live like I normally do. Saturday the 15th of April, so the weekend following on from that big bill, Ricky Burns will face Julius Ndongo as the headline fight on a Matchroom Sky Sports belt. Now, this is a fight where Ricky Burns is actually a real favourite going into the matchup. But it is a unification fight, and it's a unification fight at light welterweight in a division where I, like most people, don't really believe Ricky Burns is a genuine light welterweight. We believe he's a lightweight who's taken his opportunity at light welterweight, and things have worked out well for him. But it would be really, really interesting to see what happens here, because if Ricky Burns is the unified light welterweight champion at this stage of his career, some of the real big names in the sport are going to be very interested in fighting him. I'm talking Terence Crawford again. I'm talking Adrian Broner. He's going to have a big X on his back, because people are going to want the opportunity to fight him for not one but two belts. So, for Ricky Burns, it has the potential to be a fight that allows him to have a legacy, and a fight that allows him to have a financial future beyond the sport of boxing. It's been well documented that Ricky Burns has had some sort of financial problems, and that boxing maybe hasn't made him a wealthy man. But if he wins this matchup and becomes unified world champion, you'd have to assume that there'd be some very, very big money offers from the States and elsewhere in order to fight Ricky Burns for his two belts. So, that's an interesting fight. I think there's some decent prospects on the undercard as well, the likes of Lawrence Okoli potentially out as well. So, that's another one to watch. I must admit, even though that is for a unification bout, the characters involved have meant that I'm possibly slightly less interested in that bill than I am the Liam Smith, Liam Williams bill, which I think is a real corker. Moving on, the weekend following on from that, we have another Sky Matchroom Eddie Hearn bill. Rocky Fielding takes on John Ryder in the super middleweight division. I believe that's for the British title. And Martin Murray takes on Gabriel Rosado. Martin Murray stepping back down to middleweight. So two good fights there, two competitive fights. I make Rocky Fielding and Martin Murray favourites in both of those fights, as do the bookies. But they're both competitive fights. Neither of those predictions you'd necessarily take to the bank. I have concerns about Martin Murray stepping back down in weight class. I also thought John Ryder put in a career best performance against Adam Etches on the Eubank undercard. So if John Ryder was ever going to be in the form to win a British title at super middleweight, I think now is the time. So that's potentially a good bill. And whilst maybe the headline fights aren't superstar matchups, they're both competitive fights. They're involving fighters we've followed over the years, and we know inside out, and they've got the potential to develop into very, very good fights. Martin Murray versus Gabriel Rosado in particular has war written all over it, and Ryder versus Fielding is a real clash of styles. So that could be very, very interesting indeed. I understand that later that evening, so Sunday morning, Saturday, late night, there'll be a bill in the States where Luis Ortiz will fight Derek Rossi. Luis Ortiz now working with Al Heyman. I'd assume that'd be relatively easy work for Luis Ortiz against Derek Rossi. But nevertheless, it's a fight that we'll be interested in seeing, and I think Derek Rossi will cause less problems for Luis Ortiz than the likes of Dave Allen and Malik Scott, because I believe he's a more static opponent, and he'll potentially allow Luis Ortiz to unload shots on him, which is when Ortiz is at his most dangerous. Looking at the schedule, I've also got Jamel Charlo fighting Charles Hatley that night, and Sean Porter versus Andre Berto. You'd like to think those would be relatively easy wins for the home fighters, Charlo and Porter, but Porter-Berto in particular could be a good fight, and the winner of that one has the potential to throw himself back into the top 5 mix at welterweight. So that's always a fight to keep an eye on, certainly when you get two top 15 level welterweights fighting against each other, given how strong that division is and given how many big names are. A win there can put them right up in the mix with some of the top boys in that division. Friday the 28th of April, a bizarre fight, Kubrat Pulev taking on Kevin Johnson. Kevin Johnson coming out of retirement. You'd have to assume at this stage of his career, Kevin Johnson represents nothing more than an opponent. But it'll be interesting to see if Kubrat Pulev labours to a decision by outpointing him and by fighting conservatively behind a jab, or if Pulev looks to go through the gears and gets Kevin Johnson out of there. After all, Kevin Johnson was stopped in a round or two by Anthony Joshua, and Kubrat Pulev will probably want to make a statement. He probably won't want to go the distance against Kevin Johnson. I understand Johnson's had one comeback fight and won on points, but nevertheless, it's a weird fight, and you'd like to think Kubrat Pulev would maybe be fighting better opposition at this stage of his career and looking to take more meaningful fights, but clearly that isn't the case, and we've got to sit through this one. It may not be the best fight to watch, but Kubrat Pulev for me is still a relevant contender in the heavyweight division, so I guess we'll keep one eye on it. The day after that, Saturday 29th of April, you've got the biggest bill of the month by far. Anthony Joshua takes on Vladimir Klitschko at Wembley Stadium, and really what a great fight this is. Very, very, very good fight for me. I think you could certainly make a case that these are the top two heavyweights active in the sport at present. You may choose to throw Deontay Wilder into that mix, but certainly you'd say they're two of the top three. Vladimir Klitschko, for me, an all-time great heavyweight, the number one standout heavyweight fighter in the division over the last 10 years. And I'm impressed to see Anthony Joshua taking this fight at this stage of his career. Joshua, all the momentum, all the hype, all the celebrity, all the marketability. It's a real fight to see. Is he what he's supposed to be? Does Vladimir Klitschko have anything less? Or at this late stage of his career, in his 40s, is a young lion like Anthony Joshua simply going to be too strong and hit too hard and be too athletic and have too much for him? It's a great fight. For me, it's the number one fight of the year at this point. It's going to be a massive event in British boxing, and it caps a strong April. The day after, later that night, on Sunday morning, Saturday night, Adonis Stevenson is due to fight against Sonny Monaghan. I can see that one's listed. I hadn't heard much about that, so I'm not 100% sure that fight's completely confirmed, but it does seem to be listed for the 30th of April. I like Monaghan. He's a likeable fighter, but you'd think Adonis would be too technically skilled and too, be a level above him at that point. So all in all, guys, I think we've got a very, very strong April. I think it's a good month for boxing, and I think it's really something to look forward to. There's boxing every weekend. Tonight, Huck versus Bradis. Next weekend, you've got the Frank Warren bill plus Usyk and Lomachenko. The week after that, you've got Ricky Burns in Scotland. The week after that, you've got the Liverpool bill with Murray Fielding, and also an American bill with Porter Berto, Luis Ortiz, etc. The week after that, Joshua versus Klitschko. We're talking a lot of boxing in Britain. Every week there's a bill, and every week there's a very, very watchable bill. This is a great month for boxing. There's some real good fights, and I'm certainly looking forward to covering them all. Let me know how high you rate April as a month of boxing. Let me know which fights you are in particular most looking forward to. As always, keen to discuss and hear you guys' thoughts. Many thanks for tuning in. Do appreciate it. Thanks for watching.